26,000 light-years from where you are sitting, something is waiting. It does not move toward us. It does not need to. It simply pulls. At the exact center of our galaxy, in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, there is a point in space where 4 million suns have been crushed into a region smaller than the orbit of Mercury. 4 million stars, compressed, folded into a darkness so complete that not even light can climb back out. We gave it a name. Sagittarius A star, a clean name, a scientific name. A name that sounds like it belongs on a chart, filed away, understood. But that name is a mask, because everything you have been told about what sits at the heart of the Milky Way, the smooth image, the simple sphere of black, the neat cartoon of a hole in space, is a comfortable story. A story built to help us sleep, and the truth is far stranger. Consider what it took to see it. For decades, astronomers watched a single star. They called it S2, a blazing blue giant, twice the mass of our sun, screaming through the darkness at the galactic core. And they watched it do something impossible. They watched it swing around absolutely nothing, around empty space at 11 million miles per hour, fast enough to cross the entire width of our planet in less than 3 seconds. Nothing visible was holding it, and yet it curved. Year after year, that star traced an invisible cage. It bent around a mass it could not touch, could not see, could not escape. And when scientists measured the shape of that orbit, when they finally solved for the thing at its focus, the number that came back was monstrous. 4 million times the mass of the sun. In a space you could hide behind the planets. That is not a star. That is not a cloud of gas. That is a wound in the fabric of reality itself. Now hold that image and let it get worse. Because the black in a black hole is not a color. It is an absence. It is the sound of the universe deciding that certain places are simply not for us. There is a boundary out there, a surface with no substance, no wall, no door. Cross it, and the rules invert. Cross it, and the future stops pointing forward through time and starts pointing down into the center. Once you pass that edge, falling deeper is as inevitable as tomorrow. You cannot turn back. You cannot slow down. You cannot even scream in a direction that leads out, because out no longer exists. We call that boundary the event horizon. And for 100 years, we drew it as a simple sphere, a clean line, a tidy fence between the known and the forbidden. That is the lie. Not a lie of deception, a lie of simplicity. The lie we tell children so they don't ask the question that has no answer. Because the moment you look closely, the moment you take the mathematics seriously, that smooth, silent sphere begins to tear itself apart. The physics that describes the very large and the physics that describes the very small do not agree at that edge. They contradict each other violently. One theory insists you would fall through the horizon feeling nothing at all, unaware you had crossed the point of no return. The other insists you would strike a wall of energy hotter than anything in creation and be incinerated on contact, atom by atom, in the space of a heartbeat. Both cannot be true, and we do not know which one is. Think about that. At the center of our own galaxy, our home, the swirling island of 400 billion stars we call the Milky Way, there sits an object that breaks the deepest laws we have ever written. An object where our two greatest theories of everything scream in each other's faces and refuse to reconcile. The center of your galaxy is a paradox, a place where physics eats itself. And here is the part that should keep you awake. That thing is not far away in the way you imagine far. It is not in another universe. It is not behind some cosmic glass. It is connected to you right now by an unbroken thread of gravity. The same force that holds your feet to the floor, that pulls a coffee cup back to the table, that curves the path of a falling leaf, reaches all the way to that darkness and back. You are already in its grip. You have always been. Everything you have ever loved, every person who ever lived, every empire, every ocean, every song ever sung on this world, all of it is turning, slowly, silently, around that pit at the galactic core. Our entire solar system is falling in a vast circle around Sagittarius A star, carried at 500,000 miles per hour, taking 230 million years to complete a single loop. The last time we were where we are now, dinosaurs had not yet been born. We are all in orbit around the abyss, and we always were. Now, the tidy version says this is fine. The tidy version says black holes are stable, permanent, eternal. Set them and forget them. A hole that sits and waits and does nothing. But the tidy version is wrong about that too. Because black holes are not eternal. They glow. Faintly, impossibly, they bleed a whisper of radiation into the dark. And across unimaginable spans of time, they shrink. They evaporate. They die. And when they die, they take something with them. Something that, by every law we thought we understood, can never be destroyed. Information. Every black hole is a machine for erasing the past. And the past is not supposed to be erasable. This is the thread we are going to pull. Not a conspiracy, not a fantasy. A real, documented crack in the foundation of everything we know. Sitting 26,000 light years away, at the center of the spiral we call home, we are going to look at the star that proved the darkness was real. We are going to look at the wall of fire that might be waiting at its edge. We are going to look at the paradox that has haunted the greatest minds of a generation. The one that asks whether reality itself has a bottom. And we are going to ask the question the clean, comfortable image was built to hide. What if the smooth black sphere at the heart of our galaxy is not a hole at all? What if it is a door? What if it is a shredder? What if it is something we do not yet have a word for? Because the words we have were written by minds that evolved to catch prey and cross rivers, not to comprehend the place where space and time come to an end. The center of the Milky Way is not empty. It is not simple. And it is not what you were told. Stay with me, because to understand what is really out there, to understand the truth hidden inside that beautiful, terrible name, we have to go back to the beginning, back to a single blue star, screaming around nothing, and the handful of people who refused to look away. Let us begin with the hunt. Because before anyone could believe in the darkness, someone had to catch it in the act. The center of the galaxy is not an easy place to look. It is drowned in dust, vast curtains of it. Cold clouds of carbon and silicate hanging between the stars, thick enough to swallow visible light whole. Point an ordinary telescope at the galactic core and you see almost nothing. A smudge, a haze, a wall of gray that has hidden the truth from human eyes for the entire history of our species. For thousands of years, we stared at that patch of sky and saw only fog. The dust did not care that we were curious. But light comes in more than one flavor, and there is a kind of light. Infrared light, the light of warmth, the light your own body pours into a dark room, that slips through the dust like a knife through smoke. Where visible light drowns, infrared passes. And so, patiently, across decades, astronomers built machines to see in that deeper register. They aimed them at the fog, and slowly, star by star, the veil began to lift. What they found behind it was a swarm. At the very center of the galaxy, the stars are not spread thin the way they are out here in our quiet suburb of the Milky Way. They are packed, crowded, millions of them crammed into a space where, out here, we would have a single sun and endless dark between neighbors. If you stood on a world at the galactic core, the night would not be black. It would blaze. A sky crowded with 100,000 suns, close enough to read by, close enough to burn, and in the middle of that blazing swarm, a hole in the light, a place the stars orbited but never entered. That was the first clue. The stars were dancing around something, and the thing at the center of their dance gave off almost nothing. No blaze, no warmth we could easily catch. Just gravity, the silent tug that shaped the choreography of everything around it. So they picked one dancer and followed her. So der Zweig, a young, brilliant, blue-white star, roughly 15 times the mass of our sun, burning hot and fast and doomed to die young the way all such giants do. And S2 had drawn the shortest straw in the galaxy. Its orbit carried it closer to the central darkness than almost any star ever tracked. Once every 16 years, it would plunge inward, whip around the invisible mass at breathtaking speed, and fling itself back out into the dark. 16 years. A human patience. A career's length. And so a generation of astronomers gave their working lives to watching one star complete one lap. Think about the devotion in that. Night after night, year after year, decade after decade, teams on 2 continents pointed the largest telescopes ever built at a single point of light and measured, with fanatical precision, exactly where it was. Not roughly, not approximately, to a resolution fine enough that, from Earth, they were tracking a movement equivalent to watching a coin from a distance of thousands of miles and noticing it slide by the width of a hair. And what that coin traced out across those long years was an ellipse. A perfect, elegant, closed loop. The exact shape that gravity draws when one body falls eternally around another. The same shape a comet carves around the sun. The same shape the moon draws around the Earth. The oldest handwriting in the universe. Kepler's signature, written in starlight at the heart of the galaxy. But the size of that loop and the speed of that star told a story that no ordinary object could explain. At its closest approach, S2 came within about 17 light hours of the central mass. Close, in cosmic terms, closer than some of the outer reaches of our own solar system. And at that moment of closest approach, it moved at nearly 3% of the speed of light, 11 million miles per hour. A giant star, heavier than a dozen suns, flung around like a stone on a string. To hold a star that heavy, moving that fast, on a leash that short, the thing at the center had to weigh 4 million suns. And to fit 4 million suns inside the tiny space that the orbit allowed, there was only one answer left. Not a cluster of dark stars. It would have collapsed. Not a cloud of cold gas. It would have dispersed. Not any object made of ordinary matter, because no ordinary matter can be packed that tight without falling into itself. Only a black hole was small enough, dense enough, dark enough to fit. The math left no exit. And that is the strange, cold beauty of it. We never saw the thing. To this day, no eye and no instrument has ever seen the object itself. Because seeing means catching light, and light is the one thing it will never surrender. We proved the existence of the darkest object in the galaxy entirely by watching what it did to everything around it. Let that idea settle. Because it is more than an astronomical footnote. It is a lesson about the shape of reality. The most powerful things in existence are often the things you cannot see directly. You know them only by their pull, by the way they bend the paths of everything nearby, by the shape of the absence they leave in the world. We are surrounded by such forces. The gravity that holds your body together, the passage of time that carries you forward whether you consent or not, the slow, invisible tug of a past you cannot return to, and a future you cannot yet touch. None of these announce themselves. None of them glow. You know them only by the curve they put in your life, the way S2 knew the darkness only by the curve it put in her flight. And here is the deeper vertigo. That star, S2, felt nothing wrong. It did not sense a monster. To the star, there was no violence, no horror, no edge of doom, only a smooth, gentle pull, a graceful falling that it had followed since before humans walked upright. It curved around annihilation and called it home. It orbited the abyss the way we orbit ours, unaware, serene, carried by a force too vast and too quiet to feel as anything but ordinary. We are that star. Our sun is falling around the same darkness, on a longer leash, at a gentler speed, tracing an ellipse so vast that a single lap takes longer than the age of the flowers, longer than the age of the mammals, 250 million years to close. And we feel nothing. We wake, we work, we love, we sleep. And all the while we are falling, silently around the pit, at the center of everything. To know this, and to keep living calmly, that is either courage or forgetting. Perhaps they are the same thing. The astronomers who tracked S2 across those 16-year loops were awarded the highest honor in science. Not for imagining a black hole, not for theorizing one, for proving one, for pinning the invisible to a chart with numbers so precise that doubt itself ran out of room. They took the oldest fear of the human animal, the darkness that swallows and does not give back, and they measured it, weighed it, fixed its address in the sky, and in doing so, they closed one question and cracked open a far more terrifying one. Because once you know the darkness is real, once you know it is truly there, 4 million suns of absolute night, the next question arrives, and it does not leave. What happens at the edge? What waits at that boundary where falling becomes forever? The star never told us. The star only ever swung close and fled back out into the light again and again, never quite touching the surface of the dark. But something, someday, will touch it. And what happens in that final instant, at the razor's edge between existing and being erased, is where the tidy story shatters completely. So we arrive at the edge, the place the star never touched, the boundary that gives the black hole its name. We call it the event horizon, and of all the strange objects in the vocabulary of physics, none is stranger than this, because it is a surface made of nothing. There is no wall there, no membrane, no shimmer, no gate, no line painted across the void. If you fell toward it, you would see no marker at all. The space at the horizon looks exactly like the space just outside it, empty, black, ordinary. You could pass through it and never know. There would be no jolt, no sound, no moment of crossing that your senses could register. And that is precisely what makes it the most terrifying place in the universe. Because it is a border with no sign, a point of no return with no warning. The one threshold in all of creation where the most important event of your existence, the moment your fate becomes sealed and unchangeable, happens in total silence, and you feel absolutely nothing. Let us be precise about what that boundary is. The event horizon is the distance from the center at which the pull of gravity becomes so severe that the speed required to escape it exceeds the speed of light, and nothing, no object, no signal, no particle, no thought, can move faster than light. That is not a rule of engineering. It is a rule of reality itself, woven into the structure of space and time at the deepest level we have ever probed. So the horizon is simply the place where escape stops being difficult and starts being impossible. Not impossible like climbing a mountain, impossible like traveling to yesterday. And here is where the truth turns from strange to almost unthinkable. Inside that boundary, the roles of space and time trade places. Out here where you live, you can move freely through space, left, right, forward, back. But you are dragged helplessly through time in one direction only. You cannot choose to stop aging. You cannot turn around and walk into last Tuesday. Time flows one way, and you are its prisoner. Cross the event horizon, and that prison rearranges itself. Inside, the center of the black hole is no longer a place. It becomes a time. It stops being a location you could steer toward or away from, and becomes a moment in your future, as fixed, as certain, as unavoidable as tomorrow morning is to you now. You cannot fly away from the center any more than you can fly away from next week. Every direction you could possibly move leads forward in time. And forward in time leads down, into the crush. Escaping a black hole from the inside is not hard. It is the same as escaping the future, and no one has ever done that. Sit with the weight of that idea. We spend our whole lives believing that if we are strong enough, fast enough, clever enough, we can get out of anywhere. Break any wall, cross any distance. The human story is a story of escape from predators, from famine, from gravity itself, all the way to the moon. We are the animal that refuses to be trapped. The event horizon is the one place where that refusal means nothing. Where strength is irrelevant, speed is meaningless, cleverness is a joke, a place that does not trap you with walls, but with the very geometry of existence. You are not held prisoner by a cage. You are held prisoner by the shape of time. And now, the part the tidy story leaves out. The part that turns a simple black sphere into a genuine horror. What would it actually feel like to fall in? For a small black hole, the death is grotesque. Gravity pulls harder on your feet than on your head. Because your feet are closer, the difference stretches you, thins you, pulls you into a long strand of matter, atom peeled from atom. Physicists gave this process a name almost too whimsical for what it describes. They call it spaghettification. You are drawn out into a thread, a filament of what you used to be, unraveling as you fall. But Sagittarius A star is not a small black hole. It is a giant, 4 million suns. And in a strange mercy, the giants are gentler at the edge. Its horizon is so vast, its curvature so gradual, that you could cross it whole, intact, alive, unaware. You would sail through the point of no return, feeling perfectly fine. The stars ahead of you would still shine. Your own body would still be your own. And behind you, in that final instant, the entire history of the outside universe would begin to pile up in your vision. The light of everything that ever was, blue shifted and crowded into the shrinking circle of the sky you left behind. You would fall for a while, minutes perhaps, falling and calm and doomed. And then, deeper in, the giant's mercy would run out, and the stretching would begin, and you would end the way all things end, at the center, pulled apart, crushed inward, delivered to a place our mathematics can describe only by breaking down entirely. But hold on, because there is a competing story. And this is where the real crack appears, the one that makes the title of this journey more than provocation. Some of the deepest physics of the last decades suggests that the picture I just described, the gentle, silent crossing, cannot be right. That when you accounted honestly for the strange rules that govern the very small, something monstrous appeared at the horizon. Not empty space, not a silent crossing, but a wall of pure energy, a sheet of radiation so violent, so blisteringly hot, that anything reaching the horizon would be annihilated on contact, burned to its most fundamental pieces in an instant, long before it ever fell inside. Not stretched, not gently carried, incinerated at the threshold. They named this idea the firewall. And here is why it is a crisis and not merely a curiosity. Our theory of the very large, the theory that gave us the black hole in the first place, insists the horizon must be uneventful, smooth, empty, that an astronaut crossing it should notice nothing, because nothing special is there. This is one of the most sacred principles in all of physics. That the laws of nature look the same to a falling observer as they do to a floating one. That free fall feels like nothing, everywhere, always. But our theory of the very small, the physics of information, of the quantum world, seemed to demand the opposite. It seemed to demand the fire. Both theories are among the most successful ideas humanity has ever produced. Both have been tested to staggering precision. Both are, as far as we can tell, correct. And at the edge of the black hole, they call each other liars. This is the true meaning of the mystery at the center of our galaxy. Not that the darkness is fake. It is devastatingly real. The lie is the smooth, simple, comfortable picture we painted over it. The clean black sphere with the tidy edge. That picture papers over a contradiction so deep that resolving it may require us to rewrite our understanding of space, of time, of reality at its foundation. Somewhere out there, 26,000 light years away, is an edge. And we do not know, we genuinely, honestly do not know, whether crossing it means a silent, painless fall into forever, or a wall of fire hotter than the birth of the universe. Two answers, opposite answers, both written by the best minds we have ever produced, and the edge itself keeps its secret black and silent, giving nothing back. To not know this, to be uncertain about the very nature of the boundary between existence and erasure, is a humbling thing. We mapped the oceans, we split the atom, we walked on another world. And still, at the heart of our own galaxy, there is a door we cannot read. But the question of the fire is only the surface of the wound. Beneath it lies a deeper paradox, one that asks not what happens to you at the edge, but what happens to the truth of you, to the record, to everything you ever were. And that question threatens something far more precious than a single life. There is a law older than the pyramids, older than life, older than the earth itself. A law so fundamental that the entire structure of physics rests upon it. And that law says something simple and strange, and until recently, unbreakable. Information cannot be destroyed. Now, pause on that word. Information. It sounds abstract, cold, a word for libraries and computers. But it means something far more intimate than that. Information is the record of what is. It is the precise arrangement of every atom in your body, the exact pattern of light reflecting off your face, the specific way your voice bends the air when you say the name of someone you love. Every detail of everything that has ever existed is written in the positions and motions of its particles. And that writing, that record, is what physics means by information. And the deep law says you cannot erase it. Truly, completely, absolutely erase it. This is not obvious. It seems to contradict everything you have ever watched happen. Burn a book and it seems gone. Ash and smoke, meaningless, drifting, the words destroyed. But physics insists otherwise. In principle, in perfect godlike principle, the smoke and ash and heat still carry the full record of that book. Every letter, encoded now in the exact motion of a trillion particles flying apart. Chaotic, scrambled beyond any hope of reading. But not gone. The information survives. If you could track every particle, every photon, every whisper of heat with perfect precision, you could, in theory, run the fire backward and reassemble the book, word for word. Nothing is ever truly lost, only scattered, only hidden, only scrambled past all recognition. This is one of the most beautiful ideas in all of science. It means the past is never fully erased. It is written permanently into the fabric of the present, unreadable, perhaps, but never deleted. Every person who ever lived, every word ever spoken, every sunrise over every vanished sea. The record persists, dispersed across the universe, indestructible. The universe, in this view, is a perfect memory. It forgets nothing. And then we found the black hole, and the black hole seemed to forget. Here is the horror of it. Throw that burned book into Sagittarius A star, and it crosses the event horizon, and it is gone. Not scattered, gone. Sealed behind a boundary that lets nothing out. The information falls in and cannot climb back. For a long time, this seemed troubling, but survivable. Fine, we said. The information is not destroyed. It is just trapped, locked away inside the darkness forever. Hidden, but not erased. But black holes are not forever. This is the discovery that broke everything. A black hole is not a perfect, eternal prison. It leaks. At the very edge of the horizon, in the trembling of empty space itself, particles are born. And a whisper of them escapes, carrying away a trickle of energy, drop by drop, across spans of time so vast they defy imagination. The black hole glows faintly with this escaping warmth, and as it glows, it shrinks. Slowly, impossibly slowly, but relentlessly. Given enough time, far, far longer than the current age of the universe, a black hole will evaporate completely, boil away into nothing, vanish. And here is the guillotine. That escaping radiation, that faint glow bleeding away into the dark, it seemed to carry no information at all. It came out random, featureless, the same dull heat no matter what had fallen in. Whether you threw in a book, a star, a symphony, or a human soul, the radiation leaking out looked identical. Blank, anonymous, empty of any record of what was consumed. So follow the logic to its unbearable end. The book falls in. Its information is trapped. The black hole slowly evaporates, releasing only blank, meaningless heat. And then, at last, the black hole is gone, vanished entirely. And the information has nowhere left to be. It did not come out in the radiation. It was not left behind, because nothing was left behind. The prison did not just hold the prisoner. The prison dissolved and took the prisoner into true non-existence. The information was destroyed, and that is supposed to be impossible. This is the black hole information paradox, and I want you to feel why it is not a small puzzle, not a technicality for specialists, but a crack running straight through the foundation of reality. Because if a black hole can truly erase information, if the record of what existed can be not scattered but deleted, then the deep law is broken. And if that law is broken, then the past is not safe. The universe is not a perfect memory after all. It is a machine with a shredder at its heart. And what falls in does not become hidden. It becomes as if it never was. Think about what that means. Carried to its edge. Everything we believe about cause and effect rests on the idea that the present flows from the past in an unbroken chain. That today is written by yesterday, and yesterday can, in principle, be read in today. That is what it means for reality to be coherent, for the universe to make sense. The black hole threatens to cut that chain, to create a place where the thread of cause and effect simply ends, where you could destroy not just a thing, but the very fact of its having been. A place where the answer to what came before is not we cannot see it, but there is no longer any such thing. That is a deeper death than any death we know. When a person dies, the atoms remain. The record remains. The love they gave rearranges the world in ways that ripple outward forever, written into everyone they touched, into the shape of the present itself. In the ordinary universe, nothing that ever mattered is ever fully unmade. That is a quiet comfort woven into the laws of physics. A promise that existence, once achieved, can never be entirely revoked. The black hole threatens to break that promise. And so the greatest minds of a generation went to war over it. Not politely, not as an academic footnote, as a genuine crisis. Because they understood that the answer would tell us whether reality itself has a bottom, whether the universe keeps its books honestly, whether the past is real. Most of them could not accept the loss. They could not believe the universe would truly forget. And so they searched for decades for the escape hatch. For some subtle way the information might sneak out after all, hidden in the faint radiation, encoded so cleverly that we had simply failed to read it. And slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. New mathematics, strange and beautiful, began to suggest that the information does get out, that it is not destroyed after all, but smuggled out in the escaping glow, scrambled into a pattern so subtle, so deeply encoded, that it looks like pure randomness unless you know exactly how to decode the entire history of the black hole at once. The memory of the universe might be preserved after all, but only just. And only by accepting ideas so strange that they force us to reconsider what space and time even are. Because to make the books balance, to let the information escape, the mathematics hints at something staggering. That the inside of the black hole and the faint radiation far outside it are not truly separate places, that they are connected secretly across the void, the same information written in two locations at once, as if the distinction between here and there were not fundamental at all, as if space itself were not the solid stage we imagine, but something woven, something emergent, something that can be stitched across a gulf by threads we are only beginning to glimpse. The paradox at the heart of our galaxy is not really about black holes. It is about whether the past is safe, whether reality remembers, whether existence, once granted, can ever be truly revoked. And the answer we are groping toward is stranger than either fear or comfort. It suggests that the darkness does not erase, but it keeps its records in a language written across the very seams of space and time. A language we are only now, for the first time, beginning to read. For a century, the black hole lived only in mathematics, a monster on paper, a consequence of equations so elegant that even the man who first wrote them refused to believe such a thing could truly exist. We proved it by the star that swung around it. We argued over its edge. We went to war over what it did to the past. But we had never seen it. And there is a difference, deep, human, ancient, between knowing a thing and looking it in the face. So we built an eye large enough to do it. Not a single telescope, no single instrument on Earth could ever be sharp enough to photograph the shadow of Sagittarius A star from 26,000 light-years away is to attempt something absurd, the equivalent of standing in one city and reading the date on a coin lying in the street of another, on the far side of the world. No lens ever ground by human hands could resolve a detail that fine. So we did something audacious. We turned the entire planet into a telescope. Across the Earth, on mountaintops and in high deserts, in the thin, cold air of volcanoes and the frozen silence of the South Pole, a network of radio dishes was made to stare at the galactic center all at once. On the same nights, in the same hours, locked together by atomic clocks so precise they would not lose a second in 100 million years. Each dish caught a faint trickle of radio waves from the core of the galaxy. Alone, each was nearly blind, but their signals were braided together, combined with mathematics of staggering delicacy, until the whole planet acted as a single instrument, a virtual eye as wide as the world. An eye the size of Earth, opened at last and turned toward the darkness. The mountain of data was so vast, it could not travel across the internet. It had to be recorded onto stacks of physical drives and flown by aircraft from the ends of the Earth to be assembled. 1/2 ton of hard drives, the captured whisper of a black hole carried in the cargo hold of a plane. And then, for years, the work of assembling the picture. There is a patience in this that echoes the patience of the astronomers who tracked the star for 16 years. A generation of human beings giving their attention, the most finite thing any of us possess, to the task of seeing one thing clearly, not for profit, not for power, for the pure, defiant need to look. And when the image finally resolved out of the data, it stopped the breath of everyone who saw it. A ring of fire, a circle of hot, glowing gas, twisted and superheated as it spiraled inward. And at its center, a hole, a perfect round patch of absolute darkness. The shadow of the event horizon itself, printed against the light of everything falling in around it. We were looking at the silhouette of nothing. For the first time in the history of our species, we saw the darkness directly, not inferred, not calculated, seen. A photograph of the place where the universe stops, the round, black absence at the center of our galaxy, exactly the size the equations had predicted, exactly where the star had told us it must be. And I want you to feel the strangeness of what that image actually is. It is a picture of a shadow, but not a shadow the way you know shadows. A patch of shade where something blocks the light. This is the shadow of gravity so extreme that it swallows light entirely, bending the paths of nearby rays, wrapping the glow of the infalling gas around itself like a lens made of pure, warped space. The darkness in that image is not simply unlit. It is a region from which no light can ever return. A hole in the visible universe. A place where the picture ends because reality, as we can observe it, ends. We photographed the edge of the observable. We took a portrait of the boundary of knowing itself. And the ring around it, the light, is doing something your intuition will refuse to accept. Some of the light in that ring did not travel to us in a straight line. It looped. It bent. Rays emitted from the far side of the black hole, on the side facing away from us, were caught by the monster's gravity and curved all the way around it, bending back toward Earth. We are seeing the back of the black hole wrapped around its front, the far side, folded into view by the sheer curvature of space. Light does not travel in straight lines near the darkness. Space itself is bent, and light merely follows the bending, faithful and helpless, tracing the shape of a wound in the geometry of everything. Consider what this reveals about the nature of the reality you take for granted. You believe you see the world as it is. Light travels from an object to your eye, straight and true, and delivers the world faithfully. But that faith is only an approximation, a local convenience, true enough in the gentle gravity of Earth, and a lie everywhere the universe grows fierce. Near the black hole, seeing itself becomes a distortion. The straight line is a fiction. What you observe is not the thing, but the thing after its light has been dragged through the warped fabric of space. And if it is true there, it is true, faintly, everywhere, even here, even now. The light reaching your eyes at this moment has been bent, however slightly, by every mass it passed. You have never once seen the universe as it truly is. Only the universe as its light arrives, curved and delayed and shaped by the gravity of everything between. The image of Sagittarius A star is a mirror held up to that truth. It shows us, in the most dramatic form imaginable, that reality and our perception of it are not the same thing. That the map is bent, that the observer is never outside the field. And there is one more thing hidden in that photograph. Something almost unbearable in its intimacy. The light in that ring is old. It left the galactic center 26,000 years ago. When those photons began their journey toward the Earth-sized eye that would one day catch them, there were no cities, no writing, no agriculture. Our ancestors were painting animals on the walls of caves by firelight, wrapped in the skins of beasts, staring up at a sky they could not name. That light crossed 26,000 years of empty space to reach us. It outlived every civilization that has ever risen and fallen. It was already ancient when the first word was ever spoken. And it arrived, finally, at the precise moment in cosmic history when a species had at last built an instrument capable of catching it. The light was always coming. We simply had to become ready to see. And when we did, when the image finally resolved, and the darkness looked back at us from the center of our own galaxy, something shifted in the human story that can never shift back. Before that image, The black hole was an idea, a rumor, a thing we believed on the strength of mathematics and the flight of a distant star. After it, the black hole was a place, a real location with a real face, printed in light, hanging in the night sky above every human being who has ever lived. We had spent our entire existence in orbit around a darkness we could not see. And in a single moment, we saw it. The abyss, it turns out, has an image, a shape, a shadow round and perfect and utterly silent, sitting at the heart of the spiral we call home. And yet, even now, even with the portrait in our hands, the deepest questions remain untouched. The photograph shows the shadow. It does not show the edge's secret. It cannot tell us if the horizon is silent or on fire. It cannot tell us where the information goes. It cannot show us the center, where our equations still shatter and fall silent. We have seen the darkness. We still do not understand it. And that gap between seeing and understanding is the space in which the final, largest question waits. So let us return to where we began, to you, sitting where you are, reading these words in the quiet of an ordinary moment, and to the darkness, 26,000 light years away, turning, waiting, pulling. We have traveled a long way to arrive back at that simple fact, that you and the abyss are bound together by an unbroken thread of gravity, and always have been. But you arrive back at it changed, because you now know what the darkness truly is. You know it is real, proven by a star that swung around nothing for 16 years, tracing an ellipse no ordinary object could explain. 4 million suns crushed into a space you could hide behind the planets. You know its edge is a mystery, a boundary with no sign, no wall, no warning, where our two greatest theories of reality call each other liars, and we cannot yet say which one is telling the truth. Silent crossing or wall of fire. We do not know. You know it threatens the past itself, that the deepest law we have, that nothing is ever truly erased, meets its greatest test at that horizon, and that the answer we are groping toward is stranger than either loss or comfort. That the universe may keep its memory written across the very seams of space and time in a language we are only beginning to read, and you have seen its face, a shadow, round and perfect, photographed by an eye the size of the Earth, printed in light that left the galactic center when our ancestors still painted by firelight. This is what was hidden inside that clean, comfortable name. Sagittarius A star. A mask over a mystery that reaches down to the foundations of everything. The lie was never that the darkness is fake. The lie was that we understood it. Now, step back, all the way back, far enough to see the whole shape of what this means for a creature like you. You are a temporary arrangement of atoms on a small wet world orbiting an ordinary star in the quiet outer suburbs of one galaxy among 2 trillion. You will live for a handful of decades. You will see with your own eyes an almost invisibly thin slice of all that is. Your entire species has existed for less than a single lap of our sun around the galactic core. We have not yet completed even one full orbit around the darkness since the first human being drew breath. By every measure of scale, you are nothing. A flicker, a mote, a brief warmth in an ocean of cold and dark, so vast that the numbers describing it lose all meaning. And yet, you are the thing that looked. Out of all that mass and all that time, out of 400 billion stars in this galaxy alone, It was here, on this one small world, that matter arranged itself into a pattern capable of asking what the darkness is, capable of tracking a star for 16 years to weigh the invisible, capable of turning an entire planet into an eye, capable of standing at the edge of a paradox that threatens the past itself and refusing to look away. The universe built the black hole out of blind gravity and collapsed starlight. It did not mean to. There was no intention in it, just physics, grinding forward, indifferent. But the universe also built you, and in building you, something unprecedented happened. The cosmos grew an eye and turned it upon itself. The darkness at the center of the galaxy has existed for billions of years, silent and unwitnessed, meaning nothing to anyone, until a species of curious animals on a distant world looked up and wondered and finally understood enough to be properly afraid. You are the part of the universe that knows the darkness is there. That is not nothing. That may be the most extraordinary thing in the entire galaxy, because meaning is not a property of size. A black hole is unimaginably larger than you, and it comprehends nothing. It does not know it exists. It cannot wonder. It cannot fear. It cannot look up at its own reflection and feel the vertigo of its own strangeness. It is vast, and it is empty of understanding. You are small, and you are full of it. There is a strange and quiet dignity in that. We are the fragile things that understand the indestructible things. We are the brief flames that comprehend the eternal dark. And in comprehending it, in weighing it, imaging it, arguing over its secrets, we do something the darkness itself can never do. We give it meaning. Think of what it took to get here. Every astronomer who gave a career to watching one star, every engineer who braided the world's telescopes into a single eye, every mind across every generation who inherited a question and refused to let it die unanswered. A relay race of human attention run across centuries, each runner passing the torch of curiosity forward into the dark. None of them will see the end of it. The deepest questions: what waits at the edge, where the information goes? What lies at the center where our equations shatter? Those may not be answered in our lifetimes, or our children's, or our children's children's. We are working on a cathedral whose spire we will never see completed. And still we build. That perhaps is the truest answer to the darkness. Not to conquer it. We cannot. Not to escape it. We are already gently falling around it. But to understand it. To keep looking. To refuse the comfort of the simple story and insist, generation after generation, on the harder and more beautiful truth. We are all in orbit around the abyss. That has not changed and will never change. Our sun will carry us around the galactic center for billions of years more, silent and serene, tracing an ellipse so vast that a single lap outlasts the rise and fall of continents. We will keep falling. We will always keep falling. But we do not fall the way the star fell. We do not fall unaware. We fall knowing. We fall looking. We fall with our eyes open and our questions burning, and our fragile, defiant refusal to accept that anything at all, is beyond understanding. And so the darkness at the center of the Milky Way is not, in the end, a thing to fear. It is a mirror. It shows us the limits of our knowing, and the miracle that we can know it all. It shows us how small we are, and how strange it is that something so small could hold the whole vast dark inside a single curious mind. It shows us that the universe forgets nothing, keeps every record, erases no one, and that we, its temporary eyes, are part of that record too, written permanently into the fabric of everything, unerasable, indestructible, real. You will not fall into the black hole. You will live your handful of decades on this small blue world, and then your atoms will scatter back into the great, indestructible memory of the cosmos, never destroyed, only rearranged, waiting to become something new. But while you are here, while you are still this brief, warm, wandering arrangement of stardust, you get to do the one thing the darkness cannot. You get to know it is there. You get to look up 26,000 light years toward the constellation Sagittarius, into the silent heart of your own galaxy, and understand, truly understand, that a piece of the universe as strange and terrible and beautiful as anything that has ever existed is turning there in the dark. And you get to not look away. That is your inheritance. That is the gift of being the eye that the cosmos grew to see itself. The darkness does not know you exist, but you know it does. And in that single, fragile, extraordinary fact, the whole silent universe finally means something. Look up. The abyss is waiting. And for the first time in all of time, something is finally looking back.